All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for some more. To my regular listeners, you already know how it goes down. It over here in the Move Swiftly world, whatever the challenges, whatever the obstacle is, whatever the problems that you may be currently facing, we are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Today, I have a guest, Ben Cena, the founder of High Value Author. Myself, as a five-time published author, I am super excited to have this conversation. He's actually joining us from Dubai, of all places. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, and just spending some time with us. So Ben, welcome to the show.
As one is my pleasure.
Yes, let's get things started off because I was listening to you on previous shows. I've been on your website and, it took some time for us to really get our schedules together to get this on. And, myself as a published author, five-time published author, I have lived through a lot of the things that you have talked about in terms of, whether you're going to go self-publishing route, whether you're going to try to get a traditional publisher, whether where the book is actually going to move people and all that kind of stuff. So I think the best way to get started is to just talk a little bit about what inspired you to start the company. What were you seeing? What was your relationship with the reading like before you were able to develop a brand in which is helping authors put their books out and leverage their books in a certain way?
Sure. So I think everything started about I would say 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting in the publishing business, learning about Amazon, how Amazon works, the algorithms, how the self-publishing is working there.
Were you
And
were you like a heavy reader before, or like did you have?
no, not at all. I was the furthest thing from a reader, not
Hmm.
even a heavy reader, the furthest thing from a reader. But I think I discovered nonfiction, luckily, because when you're a child, you think that you're
Yeah,
reading stories and things like from school.
right.
Uh, but the thing with high value author happened, I think, from the frustration that I saw that there are so many books, and we were doing really well in self-publishing, publishing so many great books,
Mm-hmm.
building a business, selling a business, but there are so many authors out there. And where we're at the time, there are so many more now.
Mm-hmm.
Over 40 million books on Amazon are published, it being the biggest platform in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them are dead, right? Most of those books died, never served their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Zero reviews, up to 10 reviews, no impact, no movement, where authors think that they did the toughest part, which is writing a book, and it's not. That's
Right.
not the toughest part. That is the one that you almost like, okay, you know how to talk, right? Do we really know how to talk? We do talk. So
Right.
that's kind of how they approached it. So now then they moved and now we're helping many authors to make sure that their books do not die in the algorithms of Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other important platforms.
What were the beginning steps that it took for you to actually do that? Because again, myself, I put my first book out actually around that specific time, and I was a victim of everything you're talking about. At the point I put the book out and it was on Amazon, I remember how rewarding that feeling was, how great it was to actually see my published book on Amazon and how easy they kind of made everything to be a self-published author. And then over time, like you said, eventually it just dies down, the algorithm dies down, and I had to recreate myself. I had to figure out another way to get the book into people's hands. And I'm curious, now that you built a business around it, how were you able to take that step and say, hey, I get you have a book out, but now let's give it some traction, let's do this? What were some of the things that you were able to do at that point?
Well, actually, it's reverse, right? Because you're always going back. You want to build a business, a brand, a book, which is
Mhm.
kind of your brand from back to front, not from front to back, right? First of all, you're thinking about the audience. You're thinking about who is going to read this damn thing, right? Is it you? Right now, if you answer those correct questions, who is going to read it? What do you want to do with that? What are the goals? If
Mhm.
you want to stand on stage talking about that book, do book signings and things like that, be a TEDx speech as well, maybe that book is for somebody else, not just you and your neighbors or your family members, your peers, right?
Hmm.
But you have to go through those tough questions and then reverse engineer and then think, okay, this is how what my audience is.
Hmm.
This is the message that they would respond. This is the problems that they care about. Would my solution that I would want to bring to the table is going to grab their attention, right?
Right.
Almost like an advertisement in an ad,
Hmm.
except something that's timeless, right? Which is completely different from just any kind of advertising which just comes and goes,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And you're really establishing yourself and then not neglecting all the day strategies, marketing strategies that you have in your pipeline
Right.
even before you start writing. People think that it's a step-by-step process. It is if you know what you're gonna exactly what you're gonna do, what it is published. And as well, you mentioned that, but you have to basically recreate that journey, right? Because you know that okay, 30 days go by, 2 weeks, sometimes even shorter time periods go by, and that book is gone, right? And then you realize like later on that nobody even cares. Nobody
Right.
even cares about this book that you wrote in the first place, for example. So many authors suffer from that.
Well, it's like you said, in too often in our, I don't know how it is wherever you grew up in the school system, but in our school system, reading has been used as a punishment, something that you have to do as opposed to something that you get to do. In my journey through reading, it took me actually being through playing football and reading books on coaches and stuff like that. That's what made me enjoy it. That's what made me realize how much how much value I get from reading. And one of the things that you said in a previous interview that I want to make sure we touch on is, if you're just reading without taking action, then you have a problem in itself. Then you're just kind of wasting your time. Now, when you're conveying that message to your clients and you're making sure and you're talking to your authors, I can see there being some sort of pushback and that it kind of being a difficult situation. So when it comes to that conversation about make sure you're providing some action, or if you're talking to a potential reader, make sure there's action involved. How do you incorporate that in your strategy and in the way you are able to work with people?
Well, as well, you nailed it, right? You said it yourself. It was a punishment, right? It
Yeah.
used to be a punishment.
Right.
So now let's look at at the flip side of that. It's not a punishment for people, it's an achievement for people to get to that chapter two, to get to that chapter three. So now
Uh,
what, right? That's a task in itself for people, right?
yeah.
And you may know that 85% of people never cross 10-page mark,
Right.
right? We never do. So you have to meet them where they are. And I talk to authors all the time. I said, well, we can be optimistic and say, well, most people are going to read your book, which is not true. We're going to take a book like Think and Grow Rich,
Mhm.
right? Only 75% of people reach one third of a book. And
Right.
it's one of the best books out there in the business self-help kind of category, right?
Yeah.
So let's meet people where they are. Let's meet people what in terms of what they want to do. And it's
Mhm.
usually not that difficult of a conversation.
Right.
The challenging part is to con- uh, talk about things like, okay, let's not make it an advertisement. We don't want that to make it. We want to have that natural
Mhm.
communication where, okay, if a person got enough information, and we are talking about, for example, specific books like health,
Right.
everything that's nonfiction, right?
Yeah.
People that want to implement that information, they buy for implementation, for problem solving,
Mhm.
you have to meet them somewhere there at page 10. You have
Yes.
to meet them somewhere there in the middle of a book, at the
Mhm.
end of a book, right?
Right.
And then you say, well, maybe now let's talk. Let's solve your problems because book in itself, reading it, it's an achievement. So
Yeah.
what are the chances that you're going to take action with what I'm saying to you? They're
Exactly.
very low, very slim.
Right. And that leads me to the next thing I want to really talk to you about, because what we're seeing is an increase in podcasting. We're seeing an increase in people taking in information via audio now and visual and stuff like that. How have you adjusted to Audible and the audio books and the fact that people can put their books on audio, and now, instead of having to have like the physical copy here, they can just simply listen to it. How do you navigate those waters?
You mean in terms of how do you the logistics of it all and
Yeah, the
how people are
logistics. So yeah,
transitioning?
exactly. How do you train? Like, how do you teach your authors to transition into that as well?
Well, the math is there, right? Audible is growing faster than Amazon book sales.
Yes.
Audiobook sales are still going faster than even ebook sales, which is the Kindle version, for example, the widest selection they have there on Amazon.
Right.
So the conversation is really about where people are going. Okay,
Yes.
let's see. People
So it
are
goes back to that
listening to
point,
podcasts.
wherever, yeah, it goes back on. I'll let you in, but it just kind of goes back to what you said previously and your audience, right?
Yeah, exactly. The difference is that it's different positioning. The positioning is key because one of the main reasons why people listen to audiobooks and not podcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
they pay for audiobooks
Mm-hmm.
instead of listening to podcasts for free, and most people probably don't think about that, but they tend to lie that they read the book, right? And
Yep.
they would share with people that, oh yeah, I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Where because you know the information,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's almost like back in the day, people used to watch movies and
Mm-hmm.
they say, well, I know the book. Well, you really don't if you're talking to a person who read Harry Potter, for example, the
Mm-hmm.
book, and you've watched a movie. It's not the same thing.
Things out,
But
right?
here, it's actually exactly the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why people are buying audiobooks and they're moving there. And they have a really great model there on Audible and iTunes and even Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's an easy conversation. It's quite an easy conversation. The difficult part is where some authors want their own voice, and I always advise not to do that because it's a hassle. It
Oh,
takes so
really?
long. Yeah, it's such a
Oh,
long editing process. And for a matter of fact,
wow.
people appreciate professionalism in audiobook much more the original voice of the author. Nobody cares. Even if you're
Oh,
Robert Kiyosaki, nobody cares.
okay, you just educated. So I spent a couple hours maybe this past summer recording my three of my five books, with recording them on Audible, and having someone kind of get all the publishing so I can get it on Audible. It's not on yet, but I recorded it with my voice, and I stopped the tryouts for the people that were reading it. So you're saying that I'd be better off just allowing one of them to read the book and then put it on Audible? And
Absolutely. It doesn't cost that much, right?
yeah, I think
You
you have to
can
share
get
like
us.
royalties with them or sales with them or something. Okay.
There are different structures. If you don't want to pay anything, you can share it. I
Mm-hmm.
would never advise to do it, especially if you believe in it, because the book is going to be there for 10 years. And
Hmm.
you're going to share it for 10 years, for 15 years, for 50 years, however long the Audible is going to run.
Hmm.
Well, maybe spend $400, $500, and the person on the other side is gonna spend up to 100 hours of recording, editing, and make sure it's as smooth as a butter, right? So I think it's very important to have that matching thing. And for a fact,
Mm-hmm.
people don't know this, but people would pay more money for consuming content in different formats. And that works both ways from, let's say, print book
Yeah.
to audiobook and reverse. So if an audiobook is that good, about 10% of people buy the paperback without even telling them to do so.
Hmm.
If you tell that in the audiobook, you say, well, did you know, and this is one of the marketing strategies there that we use, for example, I'm going to give it away right away.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that reading and listening at the same time improves your comprehension levels by up to 50%, 30 to 50%? That has been proven
Mm-hmm.
instead of reading or listening alone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
That's a
called
marketing
active
campaign
listening.
right there.
But that no, that's true because I mean, if you think about back when you were in school, you read along while you listened to somebody else. Then you had your finger, and I've taken reading courses where you had your fingers, you follow along, and you're actively listening. You're not passively just reading the page. You're not passively just hearing it whenever things going on.
Exactly. You cannot get distracted, right?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot start thinking about, well, like, I'm going to have to do some dishes in 10 minutes, right? Or
Right.
whatever the situation may be, right?
Right.
Because it's like conscious thoughts kick in and then you lose track. and
Yeah.
you're listening for that book
Yeah.
to use it, right? How
Yeah.
gonna use it if you're thinking about something that you're gonna do next and you go for a football training session upcoming, right?
Yes.
And it's not gonna happen. Yeah.
Right. Now, you also draw some parallels between entrepreneurship and being an author. Can you speak on those a little bit? Because I do think that that's a very important, like a very important connection that a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize, that having that intellectual property, having that book, having something in which makes you professional becomes so much more valuable than just giving people a business card.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that strategy of using a book as a business card, actually, because people don't throw it away, right?
Right.
Business cards are very in a trash can right away, unless it's like maybe some gold, metal kind of stuff, but still doesn't work. We say that doesn't communicate the message. Now,
Yeah.
going back to what you asked about the connection, there are a few very important uses for a book, no matter what you do, right? It can be the accelerator, it can be a launch pad, it
Hmm.
can be a platform in itself.
Hmm.
No matter what you do, almost, if you're solving people's problems, chances are that book is going to accelerate whatever you're doing if you are using it. If
Yes.
you're using it, there are very few niches where people don't read about that, where people are solving these kind of problems, but we're not reading, we're not actively looking for information.
Right.
In that sense, it doesn't make any sense, actually, right? And a great example would be, for example, if you love cooking, right?
Yep.
There is no such thing as an audio cookbook, right?
Oh.
You would not produce an audible
Want it
cookbook.
highlighted, you want it, yes, exactly.
Exactly. And nobody listens. Well, now I'm going to stop it, right? Let me cook this, right? And then I'm going to come back. People don't do that, right? So now just understanding that 85 to 90% of applications work.
Hmm.
Either you're health, you are in business category, you are in self-help, you are in exercise, you are in mental health, wherever you are, leadership, specifically in business, that's a no, absolutely no brainer. If you
Right.
want to put yourself out there as an expert in that field where
Hmm.
people are facing problems,
Right.
that's instant leverage, instant.
Yes, it is. And it's important that people understand it's going to really go back, especially for the aspiring authors out there. And primarily the people that listen to the show are business owners of 20 or more employees. And for you guys, it's so important that you understand it's going to really boil down to who is your tribe? Who are your raving fans? Who exactly is it that you want to serve? And you're going to serve those people, just like the example you just shared with the cookbook. The people who are passionate about cooking, they will buy your stuff and they will dissect it, and then you're going to be helping them in their day to day. How do you do that before you just get on? Okay, I'm just going to have a book just for my ego, just to kind of massage it and just say, look, I have it. Really actually put it out there to help people. I've actually known people who give away books for free. They just ask to cover the shipping, but it's important that you have that element and you're focusing on your ideal audience. So all that being said, I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you tell people a little bit about, one, what's next for, your company, and also who is the ideal person that you would say you're looking to work with?
Well, we are quite busy at the moment.
You said busy?
Yes,
That's what I'm
we're
talking
quite
about,
busy at the
baby. That's a
moment.
good thing. That's a good thing.
Well, it comes with challenges, of
Yeah.
course, and now is the season, right? There now where people are buying more and more. It's mid-October, and we're going in the Christmas season. But um, for us, it's really for the most part is a busy person
Hmm.
who is not there because you can't do it yourself. You
Right.
can figure out all the 57 steps that we are following, right?
Hmm.
But if you don't have that time, but you see the leverage where you can see, okay, this is a book, and you see that potentially as an accelerator, or maybe you have questions about that, you want to speak about that, that might be a potential there that
Right.
we can work together and help you out. But for the most part, I would just love to say that if you are thinking about having a book, now I'm not talking about fiction here, because we are focusing on nonfiction. Fiction is a completely different beast,
Yeah.
right? It's a different beast. But
That's like more of
most people,
a leisurely thing.
yeah, most people here listening, they are probably thinking that there is something in them when it
Hmm.
comes to having a book, right? And just go and do it,
Hmm.
right? Put a strategy together, right? You can speak with us, you cannot speak with us, whatever you want to do.
Right.
But just think about what, just like you said,
Mhm.
what is your tribe? Who are those people that you are serving?
Right.
How are you gonna communicate that message and advertise?
Hmm.
Just those little stages that you're gonna go through, and you can talk to us and say, well, these are the questions I have. What are the other things, right? And we have free resources on everything. You can do everything yourself if you have time, right? And
Hmm.
just go out there and do it. It's gonna take 12 months. It's gonna take some time, right?
Right.
But it's gonna be well worth it. 3, 5 years for now if you do it right.
Absolutely. And where do people normally go if they want to get in touch with you? Where do you normally send people?
Well, you can just go to
Hmm.
highvalueauthor.com, and it's pretty self-explanatory here. We just have a few places where you can click
Got
and talk to us and our expert team.
Absolutely. And that'll be included in the show notes as well. So, Ben, the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. It is about 7 years ago. You are completely detached from, reading and the book world and the author world. I want you to pretend that that version of you has come into the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement of what his next 6 years are going to be like, and we'll officially close.
What would I say to that person?
Yeah, what would you say?
Well, he's pretty close, and I think life planned out. Just take risks.
Yes, sir.
Never let fear guide your decisions,
Hmm.
because usually when you face fears, this is where you have to go. And those doors that are closed that you're fearful of opening,
Hmm.
this is the ones that you have to open, because the direction can be completely different. I might have gotten into a military 7 years ago, and they declined me, and I am here now.
There
So
you go,
you
man.
never know.
There you go. As promised, listeners, always here, whatever the challenge is, wherever you may feel like you're lost, we're here to indirectly tell you you're not going through it alone. So I appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate you actually breaking some barriers here. We have not had a guest from Dubai yet. You are the first one. So congratulations to you,
Thank
fellow
you. Thank you,
teammates.
Aswan. Thank you, guys.
Continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.